Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
The Warriors are one game away from a title thanks to an unlikely hero. How can Boston stave off elimination after a brutal performance by their stars in Game 5? And Chris Olave is this year's top rookie wideout ahead of the season. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Golden State Warriors are one win away from their fourth NBA title in the last 8 years. They get a 104-94 win over the Boston Celtics in Game 5, just as everyone predicted, thanks to Andrew Wiggins. Joining me now from Locked On Warriors, Cyrus Tatsas. And Cyrus, I was texting you during the game that Steve Kerr must have been listening to Locked On Warriors because he made some adjustments that you had suggested he make. But I with Andrew Wiggins because he has come alive these last two games and truly been a difference maker. What have you seen from him these last two games?
Well, Andrew Wiggins fits a similar mold to at least one other player that has given the Celtics problems in this postseason. In the Eastern Conference Finals, that was Jimmy Butler. I mean, they're very similar in terms of physique, in terms of even style of play. I'm not saying Andrew Wiggins is at Butler's level, but they do have a lot of similarities, and they're similar in size. And the Celtics seem to have some sort of problem defending a player like that. And then even in the Eastern Conference semifinals, I mean, look, Giannis is a beast of his own, but, technically he's, I guess, a slashing type, small forward type player at 7 feet, the size of a center and whatever. He is a center / power forward / everything. Point is, Andrew Wiggins gives them problems partly for that reason, partly because he's a very high energy guy. He's a very high effort guy. He does love basketball tremendously. There's a lot of stories out there about some of the sacrifices he's made for the game, but he loves the game and he's a perfect fit for this Warriors team. And I'll say this: if I went to a time machine 3 hours early before the game or right before the game started, and someone told me, I'll tell you a part truth about the game, but I won't tell you the whole truth. Stephen Curry's going to go 0 for 9 tonight. Later, and they didn't tell me what the result was, I would be a nervous wreck. I'd be sweating. I'd be anxious because an 0 for 9 night from Stephen Curry, I would never translate to a Warriors convincing victory, yet here we are.
Yeah, 0 for 9 from 3 after the game that he had in Game 4 seemed unthinkable. Even as it was happening, seemed unthinkable. But you mentioned the intensity, and they defended from the jump.
Yes.
Like they knew that they needed that intensity level, and it came from Draymond Green, it came from Klay Thompson, and it came from your guy Gary Payton II. And so my question to you is: this is a team that unfortunately has played with its food a little bit this season, this postseason. This has been a little bit of a thing over the last couple years with this Warriors team. They can get a little casual, they can get a little loose with the ball. How do they maintain this intensity to avoid a letdown? Because you can't fake desperation, and in Game 6, Boston is going to be the more desperate team.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that, and we even saw it in the third quarter. I mean, that's a huge reason why the Celtics came back. Part of it was the Celtics were desperate. I mean, that was just, I think they were starting to see the writing on the wall, and they just gave it their all, but it also came at a price. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were spent in the fourth quarter. I mean, they you could tell they were out of gas. I mean, they were airballing shots, free throws were short. And Stephen Curry, you could also attribute as being out of gas from his Game 4 performance. I mean, I think that's a huge reason why he was 0 for 9 from 3 in this game. But the Warriors, I see a lot of similarities again with this team in relation to the 2015 Warriors. And I've been thinking a lot about that series with this series as well, because the Warriors did fall behind 2-1 in that series, and Game 6 was in Cleveland. And I do think that that's where this experience will come into play, especially where the veterans will remind the rest of this team they're not going to lay down. They're going to give it their all. They're not going to want. The Celtics can still win this series. It's not like it's just this. The series is not over. And I think the Warriors are very cognizant of that. And they're also, I think, very aware as any intelligent person would be, that anything could happen in a game 7. And I don't think they want to find themselves in that situation where it's a one game winner take all type scenario. So I think the Warriors will respond with urgency. And I'm not confident in my prediction, because to win in Boston, that is just so difficult. But at the same time, I don't think the Warriors want this series to extend any further. And I think they will bring the energy. But again, the Celtics are good, so we'll see.
The part of what makes this so interesting is we've heard this story with Boston that they haven't been through the battles, that there is a championship pedigree with Golden State that is allowing them to keep their cool. And yet, game 4, game 5, Andrew Wiggins, who forget finals experience, doesn't have playoff experience really. And yet he has been the star that has shown the brightest outside of Stephen Curry over the last 2 games. To what do you attribute that, whether it's culture, whether it's leadership, whether it's just Wiggins having the light turn on a little bit?
I think it's all those things you just said. I think culture plays a huge part of it. I think the lack of pressure because of all the other offensive weapons around him, the fact that his role is much more defined, whereas with Minnesota, he kind of had to be the go-to guy for everything. He was expected to be a 5-tool player. And with the Warriors, it just depends on the opponent. And especially in the NBA Finals, his role is very simple and it's very specific. Play really good defense. And offensively, just, if you can contribute, great. But his defense is what's really most important. But we also saw just a year ago, Devin Booker, who had no playoff experience either. I mean, he was arguably the best player on that Suns team, and they came close. And I do feel like if a player like Devin Booker's on the Warriors, I mean, I don't think that would be an impediment either. So I think a lot of it is culture. I think it's just, who he's surrounded by. We saw what Stephen Curry did. And I imagine anyone playing next to Stephen Curry just finds life a lot easier.
Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. We have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite podcasts on Locked On even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. Coming up, will the Celtics stars actually show up in Game 6? Here's what to look for on Bet Online, your number one spot for all of your daily gambling needs. A few Major League Baseball lines look interesting for your Tuesday. Garrett Cole has the highest ERA on the Yankees starting rotation, and yet his matchup with the Rays has a decently low over-under for total runs. Bet Online has set the total at 8. Meanwhile, the Rockies returned a lot of value to bettors last year when they were home dogs, and here they are, home dogs to the Guardians. BetOnline has them plus 147 to win. Lamar Jackson is back with the Baltimore Ravens. That's it. That's the tweet. For the first time this offseason, Jackson reported to take his physical on Monday and was at the Ravens facility ahead of mandatory minicamp. Jackson had missed all 3 weeks of voluntary organized team activities for the first time in his 5-year NFL career. He also missed the last 4 games of last season with an ankle injury, but his absence in spring workouts wasn't injury related. It was bank account related, as Jackson is looking to be the next superstar QB to get the bag. The Oklahoma City Thunder dealt one of its 4 first-round picks, and they're probably not done. The Denver Nuggets are trading forward JaMychal Green and a protected 2027 first-round pick to the Thunder for the 30th pick in this month's NBA draft, plus 2 future second-round picks. The Thunder still have the 2nd, 12th, and 34th picks in this year's draft, and the Nuggets now have 21 and 30. The moves give OKC veteran depth and frees up cap space for the Nuggets to play with. Oklahoma City will also send Denver second-round picks in 2023 and 2024 to finish the deal. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver canceled plans to attend Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Golden State Warriors and Boston Celtics on Monday night because of the league's health and safety protocols. The league did not say if Silver had tested positive for COVID-19 or been deemed a close contact of someone who had, nor did it release any details about his health. Also unclear is when Silver will be able to return to games. Part of his role as commissioner involves handing out the league's championship trophy, and they're going to do that pretty soon. This is the NBA Finals after all, either on Thursday in Boston or Sunday in San Francisco. And on the diamond, the St. Louis Cardinals put together quite a rally to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates.
St. Louis Cardinals put up 7 unanswered runs in a 7-5 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. I am Lucas Smith coming at you from right outside Busch Stadium, host of the Locked On Cardinals podcast. It started out dreary, starting in that 5th inning as the Pirates put up 4 runs, and then the Cardinals with a 5-run inning followed up by a couple more later in the game. Really, later in the game, this was a microcosm of what this Cardinal offense can do. As you saw some double extra base hits by Donovan and Goldschmidt. You saw the home run by Carlson, the home run by Goldschmidt as well. This offense can be really deep when everybody is performing. And the bullpen retired every 12 batters that they faced tonight. McFarland, Cabrera, Gallegos, and Helsley. Overall, the Pirates went 0 for their last 14. So even though the Cardinals only won by 2, it was really a dominating win over the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Cardinals get the 4-game series started off on the right foot, winning by the final score of 7-5. They look to continue the dominance tomorrow with Liberatore and Michaelis on the mound. I'll be talking all about it on the next episode of Locked On Cardinals.
The Boston Celtics did something in Game 5 they hadn't done all postseason. They lost 2 games in a row, and they did it doing something they also don't do that often, at least when they win, and that is turned it over a bunch. They had 18 turnovers in this game. In the playoffs, they are 1-6 when they have 16 or more turnovers. They are 13-2 when they have fewer than 16. Joining me now from the arena in San Francisco, John Corrales. And John, the turnovers were killer, the live ball turnovers, and it created all sorts of problems for this Boston Celtics team. How do they get that corrected?
It's, I think, more mental than anything. They've got to keep their poise. I think in the fourth quarter especially, there was a lot of jawing with the officials. And it was a whole team thing. Ime Udoka was involved. I mean, everybody on the Celtics was, I think, in the wrong headspace in the fourth quarter. And it started with that Jordan Poole 3-pointer to beat the buzzer in the third. They just lost their composure. Really, honestly, I feel like this is a case of one team that's been here before and one team that hasn't. And that was my fear coming into the series. That as much as I can say, I think Boston has more talent, and I think that if both teams play their best, I think Boston would win. But this is the finals, and teams generally don't play their best in the finals, and it's a matter of which team has the stronger mentality, and that's the Warriors right now.
It's interesting because in a lot of ways, Game 5 is a bit of a mirror image to Game 3, where Boston makes their run in the third quarter, but ultimately it's not enough. Golden State runs and hides at the end. This has been a Celtics team, as I mentioned, that has not lost 2 games in a row. They have gone back and forth in these games. So for the stars, Jayson Tatum, if you look at the numbers, you go, okay, he had a nice shooting game, 10 of 20, 27 points, but you didn't feel that impact on the scoreboard that same kind of way. And then Jaylen Brown just didn't play well at all, shooting the ball 5 of 18 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Celtics can only go as far as those two take them. And really, honestly, when I look at the box score, I'm kind of surprised by Jayson Tatum's box score because it looks a lot better than what the eye test tells me. The eye test tells me that he didn't have a great game at all. I think he had a couple of good stretches that make the numbers look good. I don't think he played entirely well, and he didn't play well enough to especially down the stretch to give the Celtics a real chance in the fourth quarter. Jaylen, that's another rough game for him after a lot of talk that, hey, if the Celtics do win this series, he might be the guy in line for the finals MVP. So it's tough. You got to credit the Warriors defense. The Warriors came out and played really hard, played really, really well. I think this is the best game that the Warriors have played. I think this is the best defensive game that they've played. I can harp on the Celtics mistakes, but I think this is the first game in the series where the Celtics mistakes were really a function of the Warriors putting a ton of pressure on these guys, and mentally they weren't able to handle it. But I think in prior games the Celtics were turning the ball over, mostly because they were making the mistakes. This one is the Warriors. Got to give them full credit. This is, I think, the best game the Warriors have played, and they really kept Brown and Tatum in check.
Yeah, the plus minus in a game can be misleading, but Jaylen Brown, a team worst minus 19 in this game, and it felt like it.
Definitely felt like it. And it's a shame that, but again, this is one team that hasn't been here before. And I think these are some hard lessons that the Celtics are learning right now. Now, the question for them is, can they apply those lessons? Could they learn and apply those lessons over the course of a 5.5-hour flight and a practice day on Wednesday before they play Game 6? And after the game, Klay Thompson said he's never been more excited to go to Boston. Hopefully the Celtics feel that way too. I don't want to come back. I didn't want to come back to San Francisco, but I think the Celtics will happily force me to take another trip if they can get their act together. But this is a matter of mentality. I'll harp on that all day long. This is a mental battle now. The Celtics are a good enough team to win, but the Warriors are the tested team, the team with rings already. It's a matter of, can the Celtics get to that level?
Coming up, Chris Olave is this year's top rookie wideout because he went to the New Orleans Saints. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? What about a brownie with that caramel swirled in it? What if I told you you could get that flavor, that experience, plus 17 grams of protein? Well, you can do it with the caramel brownie bars available at built.com. But you better act fast. They're not going to be around for very long. These things, they taste unbelievable, like everything Built makes, but just 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. Yet they're covered in 100% real chocolate. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And if you don't believe me, or if you do believe me and you want to get your hands on some of these bad boys, go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. When you consider the situations that each rookie wide receiver was drafted into, there is a clear number one. That is, according to Ryan Tracy and Eric Crocker, the hosts of Locked On NFL Draft, who re-ranked the wideouts based on the situations they were drafted into.
I'll start with my number one guy. And this is the guy who originally did not make my top 5, but easily could have. You know where I'm going here?
No.
Chris Olave. All right, Chris Olave was probably my wide receiver 6. He gets drafted to New Orleans Saints, and I love it. I mean, he has Jameis Winston throwing him the ball, and I don't think people would like, oh my gosh, Jameis Winston, like, he's throwing him the ball. Right. But like Jameis Winston, he will throw the ball to whoever, whenever, at any areas of the field. It might be a defender, but he's going to target those receivers a lot. Down the field, anywhere. And I think a guy like Chris Olave is going to open things up, and I'm expecting a tremendous rookie season out of him. This is a guy that wins all over the field. He's a very smooth route runner. He's got fires off the ball with big-time speed, threatening defensive backs vertically, getting him to open the hips so he can sit his routes down. I think he does a tremendous job of that. Guys that can run the post. We saw what he did with Justin Fields catching bombs in 2020 season, I believe, and I mean, just airing it out. And I think he kind of took a little step back with CJ Stroud. He just wasn't throwing the ball downfield the same way that Justin Fields was, at least not to my what I remember. So first,
but he was in your top 5, wasn't he? He was in your top 5.
I had him at like 6.
Did you really? Okay. Well, you're wrong, man. You're right now.
Yeah.
Because he's my number 1 too.
Oh, okay, let's go. Okay, we're on the same
and I'll tell you
here.
why. All those things that you said are absolutely right, but just close your eyes and picture this. Michael Thomas is out there, Jarvis Landry's over there, and Alvin Kamara's in the backfield. Why are you going to try to cover Chris Olave? Yeah. He's going to have the most opportunity in that offense to rip teams up. And it's just because he's the 4th wheel. He's a rookie that hasn't proven himself. Now, by about mid-season, I think that will probably change. You're going to see more underneath zones to try to take some away. but he's going to have an opportunity, especially early, to make a big mark, and I think he'll be able to do it.
So let me be clear. I loved Chris Olave, and he was the player that most Packer fans, the team I happen to cover for the Locked On Podcast Network, wanted the most in Green Bay. But he also goes to a team with Jameis Winston at quarterback, coming off a serious injury, and who has not been a high-level quarterback in his career, being coached by not Sean Payton. Sean Payton is going to be calling games this season, but on TV, not on the sidelines. It's interesting because both Ryan and Croc agreed Christian Watson became number 2, presumably because Aaron Rodgers is on those sidelines, and because that team doesn't have anyone else to throw the ball to. If Michael Thomas returns for New Orleans, he's going to catch 100 passes. The Packers don't have anyone in their offense who could give them that. And I would add one name to this list that those two guys did not mention in either of their top 5s, and that's Sky Moore in Kansas City, if for no other reason than Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback, and he is exactly the kind of player that offense could use, along with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And finally, one of the most impressive feats of athleticism this year did not involve a trophy. Brittany Lincecum finished 6th at the ShopRite LPGA Classic this past weekend. Why is that amazing? She was 7 months pregnant, and she's not done. Lincecum plans to play this year's next major, the KPMG Women's PGA Championship, before taking time away. There really is nothing quite like the strength of a mom. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go make your second listen Locked On NBA Big Board as they get you ready for the ultimate NBA mock draft. Starting June 16th, Locked On NBA brings you the ultimate NBA mock draft. Rafael Barlow from Locked On NBA Big Board is joined by every Locked On NBA host and some NBA insiders from around the Odyssey network to deliver picks and analysis. Locked On does mock drafts better than anyone else, and the ultimate NBA mock draft is a perfect example. Coming up Wednesday, who will win the Stanley Cup? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.